Welcome, listeners and viewers, to another episode of Fuel Lab Central. Today, I'm joined with Adam. So, Adam, would you like to tell our audience as to why they should be excited about listening to this conversation?
Hey, first thing I did, yeah, thank you for having me on the show today. I'm excited to be on and to reach and to talk to your audience and listeners. First thing first, I think anybody that wants to know about podcasting, social media, we got a lot to talk about today. So I'm excited to cover those topics with you.
That's great. I love it that you directly started off with podcasting as social media, specifically because you got a specific kind of past, like you started off with finance and then got into media. So, do you want to shed some light as to how this transition happened or why exactly this happened?
Absolutely. So the for everybody watching, the first thing I like to say is that if you want to, one of my goals in coming on in podcasting and also being a guest in other shows is to really help and to inspire and motivate other people to share their story. So when I started, I didn't really understand that concept. I was a finance guy. All that mattered to me was the numbers, so to speak. And I can't say that I understood storytelling. I couldn't understand the thought process of like connectivity and paying it forward or any of that. I mean, that just wasn't my experience. So I was just a finance guy. At some point, I wrote a book. It was called Money Matters. And when I wrote that book, some things started to change for me. I got feedback from others that let me know, how much these type of things could help them. And when that happened, slowly but surely, I'm not claiming it happened overnight, but I was, let's just say, a recovering finance professional, and I slowly made the transition into podcasting. And really, I didn't even want to. I tell people all the time, like I didn't even want to start the first show. The first show, I was deathly afraid of being in front of camera and in front of really telling my story. Like none of that really was going to make sense for me. But little by little, I did, kind of dip my toe in the water, and I did start, my episodes, and really one episode at a time. And I like to say, maybe I don't like to say, but it's just the truth. Maybe the 300 first episodes were were absolutely terrible. I didn't edit them. I didn't have any equipment. I did them on my headphones. I didn't even have a microphone. And when I was doing that, the whole concept was like I wasn't going to put money into something that I didn't know if it worked. And so little by little, what I realized was even though my audio wasn't the best, even though I wasn't even in the beginning having episodes edited and I wasn't editing them, like we didn't have a big company, we weren't doing anything like that. We definitely weren't doing what we do now, producing shows for other individuals. Like that wasn't even part of our business plan at that point. We were just publishing books. And little by little, our audience grew. As the audience grew, things changed. I started getting more feedback. People started to follow. My social media started to grow. Our newsletter started to grow. We now have a little under 40,000 people in our newsletter, but our open rate is insane. Like people open it, they're in tune, they reply, they're listening to episodes, and we've managed to build, I like to think, a real nice, solid community at Mission Matters. So that's the story. Really, it started one podcast episode at a time, and at to date now, and if anybody doesn't wants to check any of it out, you can just go to my Instagram, Ask Adam Torres, and there's a link on there, of course, and send me a DM or send me a message. Love to hear from you. Love to hear, of course, what other people are working on as well. But the now I have, my catalog's over 6,000 episodes in, and this year I'll do between 1,500 and 2,000 episodes, which means yeah, I know you mentioned to me it's about 9 p.m. over there ish, something like that. It's 9 a.m. in LA, and I'm already two podcast episodes in. This is my third one. Come on, man. Let's wake up.
So I love your energy, right? I mean, and how you specifically mentioned that small steps make a
Yeah.
big difference, right? So little by little, every podcast made a difference to you.
Mhm.
What changes did you see in your communication style, or probably even in your
Yeah.
social media, as to every step that you took? Probably you tuned it to how your audience was reacting, or how was it happening?
Mhm. Actually, the complete opposite. I don't do it for the audience, and I'll tell you why. And this is gonna sound really like probably people are expecting me to say that I would do it for my audience or I would,
Right.
because that's what you're supposed to say, right? And that's what you're supposed to create content from. But once I got really serious about this business, what I did was I used the same mind that I used to, invest in stocks and to invest hundreds of millions of dollars on the behalf of clients. And I put that energy into this business. And so what I did was I started in the beginning of entertainment in the United States. So I went like literally to the beginning, like go back to radio, go back to vaudeville, go back to the theater, specifically in the United States,
Yeah.
because that's what I knew. And I studied it all, and I studied the build up. And as I started doing that, I read a tremendous amount of biographies, of autobiographies, and one of them that I did read, and I don't remember the name of it, but I know it was a conversation, and they transcribed some of his interviews. It was a conversation in one of Howard Stern's books. And for people that don't know who Howard Stern is, he's the king of media, is what we call him, and he's like one of the biggest ever. And whether you like his content or not, I mean, his career's been prolific, and he's one of the biggest names ever. And so he was having a conversation. I think it was with Jerry Seinfeld, or it was somebody like really big like that. And and he said, when they think about like when they were pioneering like the medium and the art of it, like what did they do? And what they were doing was they were amusing themselves. They did it for themselves. And so when I thought about that, I'm like, wow, if you think about the greatest people that have ever done it in this business, that the people that really push the envelope, that move the craft forward so that other people could follow and so that others could either emulate or build on their work. That's what they did. They did it for themselves. So I actually do this. I cover conferences all around the world. I have interviews with individuals all around the world, and I do it for myself in terms of the craft of it. I don't, so if the audience enjoys it, I'm very happy, but do they enjoy all of the things that I put out? No. To this day, do they enjoy everything I put out? No, some episodes do better than others, but I know one thing that specifically in podcasting, I'm not talking about for Instagram, I'm not talking about for other social media platforms. I'm talking about specifically for podcasting. The audience is listening in for the person behind the microphone.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Period. Like that's it. Some of my best interviews were not with the wealthiest people I've interviewed or the highest like status people. Like some of my best interviews were with solopreneurs that
Right.
share these amazing stories versus maybe some of the CEOs that I've interviewed on my show they've run, Fortune 500 companies, like big companies, and they weren't necessarily the best interviews. No offense to them, but
Yeah.
it's just the truth. So which one hits is really up to the host. Like I like to tell people now, I can interview somebody walking into the grocery store and I can try and my job is to try to pull out the best possible story from them that I feel is going to be of value to the audience. That's my job.
So specifically, I mean, in media, we look at it as a art form, as craft, right? And
Yeah.
conviction plays a very important role as to what we create and what we want to create. And probably the audience does not, as you mentioned, the audience may or may not
Yeah.
react positively to it. So how important was this conviction in your journey? I mean, to be
I love the word conviction, but I'm not going to say in the beginning or even now, I'm not going to say that that's always easy. Conviction you can wane from. I prefer, well, for me, I'm not saying you, but I can wane from conviction. I can feel really strongly about something and then I can detour.
yeah.
So so for me, the word that I would use is consistency. And so for me, it was more about consistency. And so what I did was I built models into my day, into my life, and into my company
Mhm.
that forced me to podcast. Like I don't have a choice. If I didn't want to, I still have to. because that's what it's all built on. Now I do want to, and I love it, and I feel it's an absolute honor and privilege, and I'm shocked every day that people want to get on the podcast and talk to me. I'm amazed, and I have a lot of gratitude for that. I feel like I'm putting out good karma. And when I have interviews, I feel like I'm helping elevate the consciousness of that person's story to reach other people, and in effect, putting out more karma, like hopefully to help others. So the spirit in which I'm doing it is very serious, and even and I'd even say has a spiritual component to it. But like I'm still human, so I still wake up some days and I don't feel like doing an interview. My conviction wanes. So for me, it's the systems. I built systems that I use the word force, but in all reality, it's that put me in a position to where I don't want to let people down. Like
Yeah.
somebody may have been waiting a month, 2 months, 3 months to get on the show, and I don't want to let that person down. So I'm gonna get up, I'm going to, get ready, I'm gonna get my head in the game, and I'm gonna give them my best effort for that episode because they matter.
So you mentioned we talked about consistency and systems, right? And previously you mentioned that for the first 300 episodes you had no equipment, no specific editing plan,
Nope.
something of that sort. So how did you realize that, yeah, we're now in enough and we know we have that confidence that this is going to work? And
Mm.
how did you build on that?
Well, I'll tell you,
Yeah.
I learned very slow. So, so I didn't realize that until maybe after 1,500 episodes. I think after 300, I finally was like, all right, I'll spend 99. And actually, the funny part is I didn't even have to spend the money. The microphone, I think I already owned it. Somebody gave it to me. It was just in the closet. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'll get the microphone out of the closet. Fine. It didn't even, so it was just one of those things where I was fighting it. But I feel like when God wants you to do something, like at some point for me, he puts me in the headlock. He's like, come on, do this. And I'm grateful for that because, like I said, I learned a little slow. So I think it was probably after 1,500 episodes, we started to really catch some steam. And where it came from is one day we were, and this is, I'm not, what I'm gonna, the story I'm gonna tell, I don't necessarily recommend it for anybody, and I'm not giving advice for this because it may not work for you in the same way, but it was my story, so I'll share it. Um, at one point we had a big backlog. It was like we had 70 or 80 episodes that needed to be released, but the problem is I still had a full calendar. At this time I was doing between 50 and 70 interviews a week. So it was a completely full calendar, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? Like we started with we're gonna release one episode a day, then two, then three, then four, but the math still wasn't working out. I'm like, I can't bring somebody on the show and tell them, yeah, we're gonna release your episode in one year. That's not gonna work, right? They're not even gonna remember who I am or what the episode was. And the information will be date. More importantly, the information will be dated for our audience. So what I did was my team, we didn't have a solution. We had no idea what to do. And I just told my team, I was like, you know what? Just release them. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, release them. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, release all of them. Like, they're like, when? I said, today. And so the craziest thing happened. And again, I don't know if this was just the moment in time. This is years ago. So this may not be what happens today. And again, I'm not recommending this for anybody, but our per episode download went up.
Yeah.
Think about that for a moment. That's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So what that means is, and for everybody that's not maybe savvy in marketing or podcasting, I'll just give an example of what that means because this is a super important point. Um, if on Instagram, if you were to put out 70 posts in one day to give an equivalent, you probably get flagged for spam and your account will get banned.
Yeah.
Or you might, or best case or worst case scenario, or best case scenario, your every single post you did, your engagement's going to go down and so is your reach because the algorithm's going to be like, something's up here. Why is this person doing 70 posts in one day? It's not made to do this. So that I would argue would be a consistent experience across all social media platforms. So
Yeah.
meaning LinkedIn, you name it, Facebook, you do 70 posts in one day, you're in trouble, period. As a spammer or they're just gonna, blacklist you and you're not even gonna know, shadow ban you and you're not even gonna know. And that could last forever. Who knows? with the podcast, what happened is I released them all in one day, and each episode that we released, not in a row systematically, but the overall aggregate was that the per episode download went up. So the more episodes we released, the faster, the more audience we got. So what this means is people were sharing it, they were listening to more episodes, and also our audience, maybe the one that we'd attracted, had a propensity to binge listen. So they might have had me on all day
Yeah.
because I gave them so much content. So if they were at work working for 8 hours, maybe they had me on for four of those if they're at their desk. And I was like, wow, okay, this is different. This is unique. Let's see what happens here. And that was the moment that I was like, okay, this is the algorithm's not going to get me. It's not going to like build something up falsely. And then Facebook or whoever the person is, if Facebook, if you're listening, we love you. We spend ads with you. It's okay. Don't punish me. Please keep giving me good content, and we'll keep feeding you the beast and the machine. If Facebook is listening, let me give my shout out to them, and YouTube, same thing. Thank you. But what it came down to was like I realized that that was a form of ownership for my audience.
Right.
And that, like, just like an email newsletter, the most or newsletter, the most underutilized, underspoke about, like, a powerful tool in the world that people don't many times skip and spend more time on Instagram and all these other things that they don't own versus a newsletter. Like, it's like build Instagram's business, I understand, but your newsletter is your business. That's your equity. That's your IP. That's your direct contact with your audience. So that's the moment though, by the way, that I realized I was like, okay, we're on to something, like this thing's gonna work.
That's a different kind of story because if I listen to somebody saying that I'm putting 70 different products on the internet on social media, I would say somebody who is going crazy, or probably that account is going to get banned. And you're very right. If something like that happens today, I don't know, even if YouTube will probably do that if somebody does that on YouTube.
Hmm.
But yeah, the next thing that you mentioned was newsletter, and thanks for mentioning that because newsletter and Instagram probably two very conflicting kinds of content platforms where you're sending a very specific personal message to multiple a captive audience when it
Hmm.
comes to newsletters, but Instagram it's more a little more open, although the first ones to reach out is probably your followers, and then again it goes out to a wider audience. But I want to understand, how do you create different forms of content, or do you repurpose your content from the newsletter to Instagram, or how does it travel?
So I like to think of it in layers.
Yeah.
So at this point, we're a little bit of we're not a huge company, but a little over 30 of us. So we work hard. There's infrastructure. So at this point, I'll say what I started with, and then I'll say with what we're at now, because that'll be probably more helpful for the entire audience. So when I first started out, again, I wasn't going to spend any money. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Okay, we'll spend some money on the podcast, fine. But the other side of things, we'll see. So what I started doing is I trained my brain to create content based off of what I was already doing. So my lifestyle. So if you think about it, so what I did was if I went to an event, I made sure I took a picture at an event and I posted that. Now, in terms of repurposing, what I say that was repurposing, it was complementing. Maybe in the beginning we did the audiograms. Those were really easy, and those were popular a long time ago, the audiograms, before all these AI tools were out to create clips and things like that. So let's just say we had audiograms. We weren't doing any video, and I didn't actually do any video until after maybe like 3,000 episodes, because I was terrified of the camera. So I didn't want to. You turn on a video camera, and man, I couldn't say my name. I was like, welcome to the where am I at? And I don't know my name show because I'm scared. So at that point, it was basically I kind of started training my brain to think about it like a social media brain, like to make sure that I'm creating content. And I like to visualize my audiences with me. And I'm like, would my audience think that this was cool? like this event? Can I do something here at this event? Do a video, do like and slowly my confidence grew. And so as my confidence grew, then if you look at, for example, on my Instagram, Ask Adam Torres, you'll see many examples of this. As my confidence grew, then I at some point decided to turn the camera around and start doing selfie style videos. And
Yeah.
then I would do and I do impromptu interviews and like just 1 minute, less than 1 minute, whatever, one quick question, two quick questions, like try to do that. And I started posting those. And that was in addition to the I like to say the corporate side of what we do. So I think where some people make mistakes is that they get their content that you go on their Instagram page, you go on something else, and it's like, okay, great, this guy knows how to use a software that repurposes content, and so now he's got a lot of, or she has a lot of the same thing coming out that the look and the feel is the same. Great, you have 400 posts and you know how to schedule, use a scheduler and do a post once a day. Great. Now what? And so that's like the basic, but where's your heart in that? Like that's the point. Like where's the heart? Like where's the connectivity? The reason why somebody's following your account presumably is because they want to have a connection with you. Speaking specifically for the podcaster. And so that's where podcasters, they're great a lot of times on the mic and behind, but and then they think, okay, let me just repurpose this, put this on social media. If somebody wanted to, I mean, there's in different platforms. So I'm speaking broadly, like the clips, depending on your show, can do really good on YouTube. I'm not saying don't do this stuff, by the way. Those are all the basics. So I think everybody kind of knows at this point. Like, great, spend some money on some AI tools, do some repurposing clips, and put it. So I think everybody's already at that basis when we're recording this in April of 2025. But my advice is more so like, what else?
Right.
So the what else is you're at an event, you're at a conference, you're at something else, you're meeting and you're talking to other podcasters. For example, I'll give you an idea that you don't know is going to happen. You have Instagram, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
what I do at the end of every interview is I do a quick story, which we'll do, and I put that on my Instagram story. And in this case, let's say it did, yeah, invited me onto his show, this blah, 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 blah. I'll do a quick 15, 20 seconds. I'm going to tag you. I'm going to put that on my story. And now my audience gets to be like, whoa. That's cool. Adam's doing an interview on somebody else's show. He's supporting somebody else's show. He's not like just about his daily do his interviews and that's it. Like, I don't have to do that. I'm going to tag your account. And then what's going to happen is if you like it and you like the video, you're going to share it. And then what happens is I have more crossover to your audience. So it's about what else? Like, you got the basics covered. Now, how do you give somebody a feeling like they're connecting directly with you? And for different people, that's going to come in different ways. So on the newsletter, my tone of newsletter is written first person on the top of the newsletter, but then below that are the interviews, and below that are the events or the tour schedule of like what city I'll be in and what events I'll be covering. So that's all evolved over time. And if that sounds intimidating for somebody that's watching this, especially if you're just getting started and you're like, well, sure, Adam, you could do that. You got this. You've been doing this. You've been doing this for 10 years, blah, 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 blah. Sure, but remember where I started. Where I started was, can you take a picture? And if you don't even want to be in the camera and you want to create content, you don't have to turn the camera on you.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was at a writing get together and I turned the camera on the room and I did a quick story and it shows everybody in the room and put a little bit of music and that's it. And that
That's
shows, so now when somebody's looking at my show or looking at something else, they're like, "Oh, that's cool. Where's Adam at?" And I tag the business. That has nothing to do with repurposing. That's me
yes.
thinking and caring enough about my audience to want to give them a little bit of insight and experience into what I see.
That's what original content is all about, right? I mean, we want to create an audience that connects with us and we connect with somebody. So I guess
Hmm.
that's how it goes. Um, now, I, the next thing I want to talk about is how different platforms have worked differently. Probably you have a different kind of audience on each of these platforms, be it
Hmm.
Instagram, YouTube, or you have LinkedIn and Facebook. Each of
Yeah.
these audiences is unique, right? So, are you still trying to maintain the same kind of content across platforms, or is it changing? Specifically because you have a team working with you, you have
Mhm.
that little opportunity to add that extra twist to it, right? So,
Yeah.
how are you working with different platforms?
So I'll be upfront. We do not use the platforms the way they should be used, really.
Okay.
And that's not a good thing necessarily. And that's an evolution as a company, and we go back and forth on this. So I'll give you an example. On our end, the type of content, like for example, that maybe historically has worked well on TikTok, it doesn't necessarily match our brand.
Yep.
So what happens is we stay focused and we stay authentic to us, which that should be the first thing to mission matters and to what matches me.
Yep.
And obviously, TikTok has evolved past just, dancing videos that are
Yeah.
15 seconds long. So there's a lot of different ways. So again, we're recording this in 2025, April, and it's going to continue to evolve. And if we think about it, the evolution of how the Chinese TikTok works, at some point, it's going to be a very serious learning platform like it is in China. Like they don't do what we do with it here. And so it will change just like, it'll follow suit. The features and things that are in China will come over at some point,
Yep.
but we don't use it the way that it should be used, and we're hurt by that in some places, but in other places we're benefited. So what happens is our core audience are going to be, the let's just say the more tenured entrepreneur, maybe has had an exit or two. It's going to be the CEO, it's going to be the C-suite, it's going to be upper management. We don't do too well with the early 20s, like the 20 sums, like that's not really our audience. Our audience is probably 35 to
Yeah.
75.
All right.
So understanding that and understanding who our audience are, for me, it's about being true and authentic to myself. And so the content that we put in these different places are not going to always work. And I understand that, and it's okay. And the way that we put it out there. So for example, my TikTok, Ask Adam Torres, when you look at that, that is not, it's, I only have like 1,000 followers on that, maybe 1,500 or something like that. So the reason I'm there is because, and I still put out content there, is because um, I realize that some of the segment of the audience that's 35 to 65 or 75, some of that audience are slowly experimenting on TikTok. And so as they trickle over one at a time here and there, when they go to look, I'm going to be an obvious person for them to follow
Right.
because they follow me on Instagram or they follow me somewhere else. So my trickle in following is very small there, and it just little by little grows. But that being said, our main focus and my main focus is growing the podcast. So if that's what my main focus is and that's what I want to be, then all the other things are ancillary. I think sometimes people try to be too many things at once, and they sometimes like, okay, this is the next platform. I need to change things up. I need to do it here and I need to make it this way. And I do agree, like you do need to be as many platforms as you're comfortable with. But if you're doing it if you have that like thing, like let's say you do naturally have whatever that is inside you that makes you make great TikTok content, do
Yeah.
it. And you can make a different type of content there. I just don't have that bandwidth. I know what I do well. So if I had that bandwidth, then I would change things up a bit. Now, of course, we try to dress things up, and I'll do like now I do some. I do think I do some pretty cool videos, by the way, but they're just not the ones that necessarily go viral on TikTok. Like we spend time and they're good and they are entertaining, but it's not like me sitting there dancing. It's not, I'm not going to post a trend video that has the latest music for the sake of, gaming the algorithm. That's what I mean by we know how to use it and how you could gain an audience, but audience for the sake of audience, if you're hurting your core audience, to me is not worth it. Like it's just not worth it.
And how has this core audience been necessary for your business, right? But is
Mhm.
your business just the podcasting that you're doing and probably some revenue that comes off of
Yeah.
it? Or are you also into production videos for others? Because you mentioned
Hmm.
that somewhere in between.
Yeah.
So how does it
So
help you get more clients, probably? if that's
We launched that podcast that when I was doing podcasting during COVID, people started asking, hey Adam, can you help me start a podcast? We see what you're doing, we like it. And at first I was like, no. We don't want to do that. That sounds hard. But then I wasn't traveling and the conferences were closed down. And so I was like, yeah, sure. So we launched our podcast agency and now to date we've launched over 200 shows. So for people that, want to launch podcasts or for people that want to build their personal brand with podcasts or podcasting and even book publishing. So we've published over 400 books to date and have many, many bestsellers. So people that want to publish books and people that want to build their personal brand through that, or we also have a personal brand accelerator. And that's where I take people through building their personal brands. And we do a lot of one-on-one work with both organizations and with individuals. So I would say at this point, what happens is, we put out so much content. I like to say we give out more free content than any company of our size on the planet. Period. I'll do 1,500 to 2,000 interviews this year. Like there's no other company of our size. There might be another podcaster out there. I haven't met him yet, but maybe there's a guy out there that's like, oh, Adam thinks he can do more episodes than me. Oh, I got him. There probably is somebody out there. It's okay. Just send me a message on Instagram and we'll talk.
so great conversation that you had. I'm sure the listeners will love it. One last question before we close. You've done 6,000 plus episodes, interviews till date. Can you give one anecdote that you love to the audience?
Yeah. One of my favorites is I love when somebody is like really, really walking in their light and doing what they're supposed to be doing. And one particular episode, it was a woman who she restored vintage guitars. So of all things, and I know, so follow me for a minute, did you? I know that sounds odd. You probably thought I was going to say some big CEO of some big company. Like, yeah, sure, I've interviewed them, but this one was interesting because and I'll never forget. So she's at the end of a podcast episode, as many people that are listening to this know, normally the host will, as a courtesy, say if somebody wants to follow you or if somebody wants to, give you business, like how do they go to your website? Like, so it's called a call to action. So normally most hosts are going to do that. And I did my call to action. I asked her, hey, how can people follow up if they want to learn more or if they want to, they want you to restore a guitar? And she says, I don't want anybody to follow up with me. And mind you, this lady's very nice, very courteous. Like it was a great interview. I had so much fun. And she's like, Adam, I don't want anybody to follow up. And I thought she was joking and being humble. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, no, seriously, like your website or this, that. She says, Adam, no, I do not want a single person from your audience to contact me. I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So then I'm like, are you serious? And I said, then why'd you come on? And she said, well, I saw what you're doing. I like your show. I was listening to it and I thought, I'd love to share my story. Like, that's all. And I'm like, yeah, but you serious? You don't want to tell people? She's like, and then finally she gets a little kind of flustered. She's like, Adam, if Elton John has to wait 3 years to get a guitar, like refurbished for me. And if every rock star on the planet wants me to refurbish their guitar and I don't have time, I don't care about anybody in your audience contacting me. Sorry, I'm so sorry. So that's like, and again, solopreneur, not a huge team, but it's just somebody that's inspiring to me to know that if you're, working on your craft, if you're mastering your craft, and if you're walking in your light and doing what you're supposed to be doing, people are going to come to you. Like
Yeah.
it's going to work. It's going to work.
So thanks for that. Thanks once again. I mean, I was actually surprised. I mean, this anecdote that you shared about the whole time thing. But yeah, to the audience, I hope you like the show. If you want to reach out to Adam, Adam, do you want to share some details? Like you already shared your
Yeah.
personal
Just
Instagram.
connect with me on Instagram. That's the easiest way. Ask Adam Torres. Send me a message. Tell me that you've been listening to Aditya for a long time and I'm your favorite episode. No, you don't have to do that. You can just shoot me a message and love to hear what projects other people are working on too. So thank you.
Thanks for joining me in, and to the listeners and viewers. leave a message, leave a comment, and do like and subscribe the channel if you like what I'm doing. Thank you, Adam. Thanks to everyone listening and watching. Thank you.